Hi, I'm Angie Pontani, the burlesque superstar who has spent the last 20 years shimmying and shaking around the globe. I've performed in showrooms, ballrooms, small rooms, and big rooms, every room except a mushroom. Along the way, I've met some amazing people, and I'd like to introduce them to you. Together, we will pull back the curtain to reveal what really happens behind the glitter, feathers, and tassels. So join me for the bump and grind. Today's guest began her career in the spotlight as a stage actor. Trained at Brown University, which I hear is fancy, she burst onto the theater scene in off-Broadway shows, ultimately finding and later helping to define her true calling, burlesque. Nasty Canasta never takes a direct path ahead. Each act is a quest full of surprises, twists and turns, and some of that theatricality she was either born with or learned at Brown. A New York City staple, Nasty helped to define the downtown scene with iconic offbeat acts and her affinity for what we now call Nerdlesque. A performer, producer, costumer, teacher, and fellow Italian-American, I am thrilled to have the one and only Nasty Canasta on today's Bump and Grind. So first of all, I want to talk about what is in a name. Nasty Canasta. Where does that come from?
So if I had known, it maybe wouldn't have been the name I picked, but it seems natural now. So there is... See, I'm always like torn. Should I tell this story? Because technically it's a copyrighted property of Warner Brothers, but do they even exist anymore? I don't know.
I don't know.
So there is a cartoon character who, as far as I know, was only ever used twice. And once was from this amazing Looney Tunes short called Drip Along Daffy. And then I think the character was also in Space Jam, which I have to admit I have never seen. And it's funny because the couple times that people are like, oh yeah, I totally knew I knew that was a character. It's that cute little devil girl, right? I'm like, no, it is a giant outlaw, like bearded Neanderthal looking, like mean villain. He's awful. He's wonderful, but he's awful. And I remember watching the thing once and being like, that'd be a great name for something. And then it stuck. The other choices were probably worse.
So your name also played into what must have probably been your first burlesque production show that you did in the early 2000s, Sweet and Nasty. You had a weekly show.
Yeah.
And tell me about that. How did you create that?
So the first gig that I ever did was back at Galapagos when it was on West 6th Street, when it was in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. When it was like...
Yeah.
God, you'd think I'd remember that address now. But, Veronica Sweet, who has since retired, was at that gig. And, it was like her and me and a bunch of like random weird variety guys, which was what that gig ended up being all the time. And, I was like nervous as all get out, and she was the sweetest thing in the world. And, we're talking backstage and she's like, Sweet and Nasty. That would be so fun if we ever do a show, we should call it that. Haha. After a while, we worked together a lot, and then over the next year or two, and then we inherited a show, and we were like, remember back like a year ago when we said we should do Sweet and Nasty? Let's just call it that. And it was a weird, I'm not sure why the name worked, but it totally worked. And
it definitely worked.
Yeah. And that ended up...
And it was at Rafifi. Wasn't it Rafifi?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, on 11th Street. That
was a great place.
It was great. I mean, it was not. It was horrible, but it was great. I don't know.
Yes, the dressing room, it lacked those creature comforts, but magical things happened.
It was wonderful, and I do actually now miss that a lot.
So you met Veronica Sweet at your first show that you did as Nasty Canasta. Yeah. And what brought you to that first show? Because I know that you, as your bio states, you were in off Broadway, but you wanted to be a legitimate actor, right? You wanted to be in theater.
Yes.
And so how did you go from that to that night at Galapagos?
So I went to school for theater. It's just, liberal arts, though, not like a theater school, because it was also, straight theater, not musicals or anything. Like, I was very serious about this. Like,
Oh,
very
yes.
serious. So after I completed my completely useless Bachelor of Arts in theater from a Ivy League school, like, the one thing I would change in my life, but that's fine. Can't tell your 17
Where did you go to school? Where did you go to school?
I went to Brown.
Woo,
yes.
girl.
And I'm happy to say have only recently paid that off. So there you go. I mean, what are you going to do? You can't change the past, and I wouldn't have ended up in New York or probably so what are you going to do? But, so I moved to New York to do theater, but because I was I'm not a singer or a dancer. I actually love musicals. I love them, but just as an observer. I'm not musical at all, which is hilarious for somebody who quote unquote dances. But
yes.
So I was doing straight theater, and it was the late 90s. So there were all these like tiny little weird theaters and stuff. Anyway, a friend of mine from college who also moved to New York, was even more like avant-garde, like puppetry and circus stuff, and he went to everything, and I saw more weird stuff because of him. And I guess he called me one day and he was like, this guy that I did a Cirque school program with is doing this show that I don't even know what it is. It's at some place, some slip or something, I don't know. So come see this show with me. I don't even know what it is, but he's hosting or he's in it or something. I don't think he was hosting. I don't to this day, I do not remember who this guy was or if he even ended up actually being in the show. So I went to the show and we walked in, and, these little cabaret tables in this little magically lit place. And I'm watching this show, and it was like Julie and Harvest Moon and Lady Ace, I think was in that. It was just like, holy crap. And I'm watching the show, and I was like, nobody fucking told me that this existed. Like, Jesus. And after the show, my friend looked at me and he was like, so when are you going to try this? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, not like I could never, but just like, I don't know how you even get started with this. Ages later, he was on the mailing list for variety auditions. And he was like, what was her name? Boo Freuble. There was a vaudeville show audition at Galapagos, and you should go audition for this. And I was like, all right. So I like put together a couple numbers, and one of them was totally like a 50s housewife making cake, like, because of course, clearly that's what you do. And then one was like Nirvana and like Doc Martens and taping my boobs and stuff. And so like, seriously. So I went to the audition. I did these 2 acts, and I do not remember the name of the owner. And he sat me down afterwards, and he was like, cool. The housewife thing, don't bother with it. But the other one was like kind of cool. So we'll call you if we need you. And I was like, okay, you're never going to call me, whatever. Again, like months go by, and I was on vacation in Atlantic City, and I get a call and they're like, hi, we have an opening in the show tomorrow. Can you do 3 acts? And I was like, what?
Did you have 3 acts?
Nope, I didn't. I had one that I'd never performed. So it was right around Easter. I remember on the way home, I like stopped at a giant drugstore and was like, I'll get some Easter crap and like do something with that. I did this weird thing to like the Sex Pistols, Who Killed Bambi. Like, thank God we didn't have video then. And I don't even remember the other thing I did. Like, I have no idea. And then the Nirvana act, which I actually ended up doing for years.
So what then at that point, like, you were not prepared as you would have been, what made you say, okay, I'm going to leave the theater behind and start doing this? Or was it kind of like, okay, this could be another platform for me. Like, I'm going to pursue this in addition because I'm just on stage. Or were you like, burlesque is going to be my life now?
It was gradual. It was super gradual. I know I was getting very frustrated with theater. I'd been doing it for, I don't know, 8 years or so. And, you end up doing these like horrible shows that you rehearse for 6 months without pay that, people are like, oh, when did your show open? You're like, please don't come see it. Like, please do not come see it. So I was getting really frustrated with that. And because I didn't do musicals, honestly, the education I had not being a, conservatory school, they didn't teach you any practical stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to move to New York and be in theater. And you don't know how to like put together a resume or even go about the process of starting to think about getting an agent. So I was just floundering for years. But I do remember at a point being like, I'm having a lot of fun doing these burlesque shows. 2 nights a week at Galapagos, there was Monday Night Burlesque and the Floating Vaudeville on Fridays. And then there was Starshine. And like, that was kind of it for regular shows, especially for newer people or, somebody who hadn't been doing it for long. And I just remember at a point being like, wow, it'd be great if I had like 2 gigs a month. Like, that'd be fantastic, because I don't really see how you would get more than that. And then eventually it just took over, and now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I could have other interests now.
Well, I think it's interesting because, you came into it at a time where it was really rip-roaring in the city. And I can imagine, being in that theater world where it can be unfulfilling. And then you come into burlesque, and it's not only is it fulfilling to be on stage and everybody's clapping for you, even if you don't feel like you're prepared or being amazing, but the scene at that time was really active and really fun. And there was such an enthusiasm. So I think it could almost intoxicate you.
Absolutely.
And
it was super fulfilling in the way of, I had done some really shitty plays that were also like, a guy wrote a play where, weird, there's a scene where his girlfriend has to make out with a woman. Like, it's so, gee. And, the costume designer like doesn't know what they're doing and all this. And finally to be like, I can put anything that I want on stage. And I mean, especially then, like anything, like you could... Like, absolutely. Being at the first time I worked with Rosewood at Slipper Room, and I was like, I really can do anything I want. This is amazing.
Yes.
Nobody's
And Rosewood is an amazing performance artist who does anything.
And the fact that like these were the people that to be that new at that time and end up backstage with Julie or Rose or Tigger or Dirty or I don't remember the first show we did together. I think that wasn't for a while.
I think it was at Rafifi maybe. I feel like we were at Rafifi some point together, but I feel like it was for Little Brooklyn's night that she had there for maybe Starshine, possibly that for Starshine, yes.
But just the idea that like because there were still fewer people and fewer shows, you were working with people who had been doing it for a long, at that point, a relatively long time. And that was just wonderful because you were just like, every show you did was like just a masterclass in everything on stage, backstage, it was just wonderful.
Well, it was a smaller pool, right? Mm-hmm, and I feel like it was before people started traveling so much, too. Yep. So it's like you'd have most of the big stars in town on any given day. Mm-hmm. So as a performer, your acts are always different. Like you're always bending the rules. You're always playing with different concepts. There's always some kind of story. It's different. It's not like, here's classic, here's my boa. When you were in theater, was that something that you aspired to do? Did you think that was one of the things that you just tired of in that environment? Just those constraints of here's the play and you wouldn't be feeling it, or you were like, we can bend this a little bit. Were you dying to break out?
It's interesting because I always did. My dad always called weird shit theater. And my parents have been very supportive my whole artistic career. But my dad always just wanted me to do like Tennessee Williams and that kind of stuff. And to be fair, I did Tennessee Williams. I did Glass Menagerie once in a summer theater, and I was like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. But like even in high school, I had an amazing drama teacher in high school and who literally did happenings with us in the 90s because he was a guy from the 60s, and he was like, we're gonna do a happening at the pep rally, and we were like, yeah, we're art school students, and we weren't, we were in suburban Massachusetts, whatever. So I was always drawn to that stuff, but I think once I hit, it wasn't even professional theater in New York, but once I hit non-academic theater, it just got very frustrating because you had so many people in the mix who either didn't know what they were doing, or I don't know, it just became a weird environment of like people you didn't trust having control over so many elements.
So like speaking of your family and weird shit, how did they feel when you left theater eventually completely and became a full-time burlesque performer?
I don't think I ever was like, Mom, I'm leaving theater.
Yeah.
I think I did tell my mom that I was starting to do this burlesque thing. And her first comment was, well, be careful and watch out for the mafia. And I was like, okay, we got to unpack this, Ma. Like, first of all, I'm not working in clubs. And it's not 1964. So we can,
Yes.
and the first shows that she came to were actually full plays. I mean, it was like the Marx Brothers show and stuff, like things that had a script, and so that was familiar to her. And the same friend who got me into all this, like sat next to her in the audience, and she had known him for years. So I think like sitting next to him, watching a play was a better way for her to be like, okay, I see what you're doing. I mean, like I did naked in plays, and I mean, we did the Bacchae in college, and we were like rolling around all over the place and stuff. So it wasn't that strange. I think for that show, I did the unknown stripper act, and her only comment after that was, I mean, no, I get it. I don't know why you had to get so naked, but
you could have gotten a little less naked, perhaps.
Yeah,
just slightly.
But she was okay. And God, we all have the shows that like you can come to this one, but like you can't even know about this one. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
So my parents are friends. They are not together, but they talk a lot. And I never quote unquote told my dad, but he totally knows. And it finally at a point I stopped calling it like Variety, and I was just like, I have a show this weekend in Boston, but you can't come. But it's going to be really late, so you can't come to it. Like
20 years later, he definitely knows Nasty.
Right. I think he knows. I am super, super eternally grateful that my dad does not with internets, and my mom is like, ugh, Facebook, it's for kids. Who needs that? So I'm like, as long as I take the email signature off when I email my mom and she doesn't discover Instagram, like, it's fine, But yeah, she's, again, like she's come to shows. She actually was on stage. So I did a show in Boston, hosted a show, and she demonstrated pasties for me. She stuck them to her shirt, but she totally did a little demonstration. It was great. She was pretty good.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. She's great.
It's a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good.
I was actually seriously worried for when I first started that she would want to try it and that I'd have to then deal with her getting booked more than me or something,
I know. It is rough. I literally just like fessed up to my dad a couple of years ago too, and he was just allowed to come to his first show.
Oh, yeah.
Where I wouldn't make him leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big step, I'm like, okay, I'm 900 years old. I could probably
I know, right?
I'm
like, I'm older than my mom now. I could probably tell her that.
It's like, who are you kidding? Just myself. And that's all I need to kid. It's good enough for me. So, like, talking about your styles have always been unique, like straight out of the gate. Like, for me, like when I think Nasty, like the early years, it's that horn honk fan dance that was so iconic. So like 90s, early 2000s New York, this beautiful fan dance performed, to not car honks, car alarms, which was the soundtrack of the city. Were you just laying in bed one night while they were all going off? And you were like, I'm going to make a fan dance.
There was I swear to God, there was a car parked outside the house that like it went off for 36 hours. It couldn't have been, but it felt like it, when I'm like, how did the battery not die? But I found myself like brushing my teeth to the rhythm and like mixing the pancake batter to the rhythm. And I finally was like, that would be kind of weird and fun. And there was like 4 different versions of it before the one that it ended up being, and sort of, I guess technically still is. That was the last act I did before the world ended. I brought that up to Alaska. So
I was going to ask you.
Yep. That might
Did they get it? Did they get the car alarm reference?
It's interesting. They totally did, but it's an interesting question because you hear less of them now, and certainly not that, like,
yes,
you just get the BB ones, but not that specific one. So I wonder if that one's gonna hit a point. I mean, it would be amazing, but if we hit a point where people are like, I don't know, what is that? Is that a weird bird?
Because I was even thinking, like, with the kids now, it's not like it used to be with the car alarms, because it used to be like a living hell, like constantly. It was so annoying. And what about your Bambi act? Because you had that Bambi mom dying, mega emotional roller coaster.
That act. So that was a duet that usually I did with Hardcorey because, God love him, you ask him to do something horrible and he will, which I respect very much. There's this amazing song. it was from a John Waters soundtrack about, it's like a little kid voice. I can't remember what it's called. It's a little kid voice about like, Mom, please don't be a stripper. It started out, we did Epic Win, which has since, like many of us, disbanded itself, did themed nerd shows. And they did a show that was super, super violent. So people did acts about all sorts of stuff. We started with Clockwork Orange, and it just got more from there. They covered the stage with white canvas, and by the end of the show, it was covered in blood. It was delightful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful and like horrible too. I'm also allergic to a lot of fake blood, so that was a weird one. But
oh geez.
And I was like, I don't really like horror movies and stuff. That's not my thing. And I was like, what would be the cutest thing in the world? So we just started out with Bambi and Bambi's mom, and Mom has to go to work and give a lap dance to the hunter, and then gets shot in the face. And
adorable.
Yeah, adorable,
absolutely
right?
adorable.
So here's the problem. I find it hilarious. And there were times when I was like, oh great, can I bring my Bambi number to the show? People would be like, no, that's really disturbing. And I was like, why? Oh, okay. But I don't know. I still find that one of my favorite things that I've ever done. It's since been retired because I outgrew the costume. But I don't know. I think
it's only disturbing when it's over and you're home later thinking about it.
That's probably it, right? Because I think when it happens, it's sort of a little.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And like, if you get it with like,
totally.
Gunshot, blackout, done. By the way, thank you for letting me do that at Burlesque Fest ever, because that was one that I was like, should I send this? Fuck it, I'll send it. They'll tell me I'm an asshole if not. So thank you. I appreciate that.
It was amazing, but I mean, like, listen, I'm still scarred by the original Bambi. Sissy, my daughter, watched it the other day, and I was like, how could they do this?
Yeah.
This is terrible.
I have to say, like, I haven't actually rewatched it since I was a little kid, other than trying to just steal a little audio clip from it for the beginning of that act. But other than that, I was like, I don't think I actually want to watch this. I'm
it's totally horrible. Yeah. It's heartbreaking. So it's not your fault. You didn't create the concept. You just embellished on it and definitely made it more fun.
And there was butts, so,
Yeah, butts make everything better. Mm-hmm. So your acts are always very different and they're very unique, which leads me to my next question. Is you were really one of the first victims of straight up act theft. When you had that one, and this is like really going, I mean, I don't know, maybe it was like 2007, 6,
yes,
7.
Well, we did the act at Exotic World, as it was then called, in 2007.
And this act, well, tell us a little bit about the act, because it was very unique. It's not like you can't say, like, I did a classic number to Night Train in a purple gown.
Like I wore a blue dress, you wore a blue dress.
Yeah, no.
So
this is...
So the act was a puppet act. There was a little setup on stage, and there was a flower in a pot that was all droopy and sad, and I tried a whole bunch of ways to make it grow. And then when I accidentally leaned over and gave it some cleavage, it perked right up. So, I love burlesque. Maybe if I show this flower my boobs, it will grow. And lo and behold,
what a concept,
right? It was a great act, and wow, this is all ending up being about my friend Dove. He actually was my puppeteer friend was the consultant on the puppetry in that. So, but yeah, I did that act all the hell over the place for a while. I mean, that was the first year that I did NYBF. That was that act. Did that at Exotic World, and I want to say in Teaserama, maybe.
You had done it at international conventions and shows where there were big audiences. Yeah, you had left New York with this act that was very unique. And so then, it starts to whispers on the wind, maybe a couple pictures on MySpace that someone is doing essentially the same exact concept. So how did you handle that? What did you do to deal with that?
And it's funny. I don't even remember how we found out other than, I know Little Brooklyn, this same person had like move for move, prop for prop, concept for concept, stolen one of Little Brooklyn's acts at about the same time.
Who's another performer who does very unique
Very unique. Like there was no mistaking that, like, oops, accidentally. So we both, I remember this person was based out of DC at the time. I think I didn't really know Don Spiro yet, the photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I'd met him a couple times, and I emailed him and I was like, hey, listen, do you happen to have any photographs of this person performing this act? Or I believe you were photographing at a show where I think she performed this act. Can you tell me, how was it like? Did it something like, I'm trying to not be a dick about it too, because, you know, we also get very reactionary and stuff and whatever. And I remember he was like, he was like, I want to talk to you about this in person. And I was like, oh crap, what did I do? You know, and he came up and he was like, yeah, she did your act.
Oh my gosh.
I'll get you some photos just so you have them. Like, please don't post it or whatever, but like on the MySpace, because that's what we had then. But, and yeah, and it was move for move. And I know, so Little Brooklyn and I both emailed her, or maybe MySpace messaged, I don't know, probably emailed, at about the same time. We were like, hey, noticed from the photos that even if the music is different, because we don't know what music you've been using, because they're still photos, but this is not, you know, this is too similar to be a coincidence. Please explain. And she sent back to each of us separately, because we emailed her separately, the exact same email with pertinent details changed. So to Little Brooklyn, she said like, blah, 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 blah. But I have always been a fan of, I think it was one of her housewife acts. So I've always been a fan of I Love Lucy. So this was a tribute to Lucille Ball. And you can see how that would blah, blah, blah. And to me, I've always been a fan of Little Shop of Horrors. And last time I watched the movie, this occurred to me. So, and it was just like, you pathological lunatic. Turns out, you know, though she had been taking class materials from, I want to say like Indigo Blue and maybe Joe, like in word for word, literally using that text and changing the names and giving it to her students in her classes and stuff. I mean, she was a nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, to have your concept stolen, like step by step, did that make you feel a way like going forward about the other acts that you were creating? Because again, everything is so unique. Did it just kind of make you feel like you're putting so much out there that anybody can scoop up and run with? I
mean, I think a lot of my stuff is a little like sort of too dumb for anyone else to want to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get a little bit of like, oh, your stuff is really smart and funny in that way of like, but not pretty, so I'm not threatened. I'm like, okay, cool. So I think there's that, but I think a lot of it is just like, especially now, like with, you know, everything online, like, all right, just try it. Like, just try it, you know?
Yeah.
And nobody is going to get like, well, there aren't $8 million corporate gigs anymore anyway, but like nobody is going to get an $8 million corporate gig with my dumb acts. Like no one is going to win Queen of the World with my dumb acts. So like...
Well, and they certainly wouldn't get away with it now because, I mean, look, she didn't get away with it then, and now there's even more of a connection, you know, and you couldn't get away with it when you were looking at Polaroids.
Exactly.
So your acts are always funny. There's always a gimmick. So, and like you just said, like, have you ever thought about coming out and just doing like, hey, big spender? I'm joking. I know you would never do hey, big spender.
I did that Christina Aguilera Nasty Naughty Boy song.
Yes.
I actually did. I was challenged by another performer. We challenged each other to do the thing on stage that we were the most terrified of. And for her, it was singing. That is probably even more terrifying for me, but it is not possible. Like, no one will put up with me singing on stage. So, so for me, it was doing a classic, straight, sexy act with no irony, with no twist, with no anything. I mean, I wore like a turquoise and black striped corset with bows everywhere, and I had a fucking top hat, and I enjoyed the fuck out of that act. I loved doing that. I did it for years. It was so much fun because for me, it was playing a character. That I never get to do. So that was actually really funny. And, you know, I've here and there, I want to say like, no, I've done classic stuff. Like, I've always been a jerk about it. So yeah. But that one straight up was like, I mean, when my back could still handle, like there was floor work. I mean, it was. Oh yes. Yeah, it was, you know, like it was real. And, but it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, I see why people like doing this.
I think it's funny because like you and Doc pushed me to do something totally outside of my wheelhouse because I'm always classic. I do the same thing over and over again. And you and Doc were doing the Unsolved Mystery show. And I was also, Brian and my husband and I were also watching Unsolved Mysteries at the same time. And we only knew because,
so
obsessed.
Good.
And we were like, you guys would post something and I'd be like, we're watching that episode right now. So then you guys produced an Unsolved Mysteries stage show where each act got this great intro from Nasty that was like with the music, like, oh, it was so good. So there's this one episode of the mom, like she runs away. They find her car at Bob's Big Boy. Like, and then like 10 years later, like I think she was a stripper. She was like with a 20-year-old. So I did this number to Runaway by Bon Jovi. I got the tracks.
Splendid. I love
it's my
this act
favorite.
so much. And that's it, right? Like it's such a treat. Because like you are good at what you do.
Thank you.
But you also like it's what you do. So like it becomes normal to you, as much as
it becomes repetitive. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so much fun to switch it up. It really is.
When I did that number, I had such a blast, man. And I actually did it at the New York Burlesque Festival that year. Mm-hmm. I took it to San Francisco. I will take that act anywhere that it will make sense because it's, oh my God. And I have a box of Cheerios. I'm throwing it.
Yes, the groceries.
It was the best. Oh my God. Well, I'm so thankful that you guys inspired me to do it because it breathed like some new life into me. And actually, I recorded a version of it in my kitchen a couple of months ago when I still had the energy to put on makeup.
Oh my God, right?
When this episode airs, I will post that on my Instagram because it's hilarious. So in addition to your talents on stage and performance, creative concepts, producing shows, and not just producing shows, I think you pull on your theater background, right? Because you had mentioned the Marx Brothers show, but so many of the stage shows that you produce have a script, have like a theme, but it's again in the spirit of burlesque. So do you think that has been a bonus to your career and kind of setting you apart too from the pack with the shows that you do put on?
And I think to me was sort of the ultimate synthesis of all of the things that I do and have wanted to do. And, the only sad thing to me about that, or not even sad thing, but the only hard thing about those was like, they are so much work we did Macbeth. Like we did Macbeth. It was, I got the script down to 15 pages, but like we did Macbeth. And we rehearsed for ages. Back to the old thing that I was, why I got out of theater. We rehearsed for ages and people built numbers for this and we had props and it was amazing and there was group stuff and we did it once.
It hurts.
And that because you tried booking Bell House for 2 nights in a row, it just, and then like we did it again 2 years later, but like half the people couldn't do it. So we had to start over again, because people's schedules, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. So like, I think had the world not ended, I think ultimately what I would love to have done is full scripted shows that we could run for a couple days. And I know people have done that in again, before all this nonsense, but people did that in New York. I mean, with different styles of things. Some of them were more improv and some of them were, whatever. But I would love to have gotten to do a little more of that.
Yeah. Oh, well, you should. When this is over, you totally should. But it is hard to find a space in the city that you can have for an extended period of time without spending a tremendous. Yeah, you have to spend a lot of money to have that luxury, which is unfortunate.
And as we all know, burlesque is just piles of money lying around for the taking, right?
Oh, yeah, they throw it at you. Which leads me to my next question. So you started this whole concept of the dollar store showgirl, where you're an amazing seamstress. You can create anything out of anything, but your specialty is creating many things out of things from the dollar store. This is a burlesque concept in itself.
Yes, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I lived with my grandmother for a lot of my childhood. And I was with my grandmother, because my mom would be working all week, and I had toys, but for the most part, she'd be like, all right, what do you want to do this week? I'd be like, I want to make a dollhouse. So we'd like save cardboard boxes and thread spools and all that stuff. And my little Italian grandmother, like off the boat Italian, like didn't know a Star Wars from a Star Trek, but I described a lightsaber to her and she was like, all right, let's save some paper towel tubes. Like we'll do this, you know? And then a lot of the shows that I grew up with, they get like, gee, big surprise. I loved sci-fi and I loved the 70s sci-fi that I grew up with, like Doctor Who and the early, Star Trek and stuff. And when you watch this stuff as a kid, I remember thinking like that prop is a salt shaker. They're just holding it upside down and they put paint on it. Or that city in the distance, you can see that it's a collection of bottles spray painted with a thing on it. And it didn't seem weird or cheesy or cheap. It just seemed like that's how you do things. So the idea of like just making stuff out of whatever you have was always, just made sense to me. I kind of, even doing this full time, I kind of have never had the cash to put $1,000 into a costume at once, especially if you're like, I don't know if this act is going to be any good or get booked. So like, but I also just love dollar stores and I love plastic crap and I love cheesy shit. And I realized that when I was trying to like build a giant headdress, like rather than going to the garment district, I was starting at the dollar store. And then I started challenging myself more and more to do that. And then it became a little bit of a philosophy. And I don't mean that like everything that we put on stage should be built out of trash and wrappers and, discarded whatever. But I do dollar store showgirl classes and talk to people about it and stuff. And what I think the sort of philosophy behind it is like, though burlesque is about, crazy glitter excess, and that's kind of the most wonderful thing about it. Like when else do you get to like rhinestone a Q-tip, like, and write it off too? Like that's part of why we do this, because it's so fabulously extreme. But at the same time, I think we've maybe gotten a little bit into relying on the rhinestones to do the work for us.
Yes.
And in very extreme cases, sort of measuring the worth of performances by the price tag on them. And I that's not how art works to me. I think it can enhance, but it can't take the place of. It's just a really fun challenge. So like to staple, weird dashboard Jesuses onto a headdress is kind of fun and like see what that makes.
Nobody's going to have the same costume as you.
And that's it. And I've done it, I'll do classes with people and I'm like, we're just going to make a headdress. Like, you don't have to use it for an act. We're just going to make a headdress. And I got to say, the last time I did it, some of the stuff that people built was beautiful. Nothing looked like anybody, like nothing looked the same. And then, people, ended up building acts around some of this stuff that was just amazing, just beautiful. So I was really proud of that. And people did great work and I still get like, like this amazing, gorgeous, like couture costume, but like nothing was going to make the hem work. So I stuck a hula hoop in it and like, that's great.
Yes.
I love that. I love that stuff. I love it.
Well, that's what I think too. Like, you really are working your brain and like getting your creative juices pumping when you walk into the dollar discount and you're like, okay, what can I get in here to make my costume work? And also there's so many performers that will do an act like, there's a themed show and they want to do a one-off. It makes zero sense to go and spend a ton of money. But you keep your life fresh and fun when you can just pop out to the dollars. I love it. When I first started, especially all the Pontani sisters headdresses, they were soda bottles, like the big plastic liter bottles. I would cut off the end, turn it upside down, wrap it in fabric, cover it with hot glue flowers to it, make it into like a turban wrap. I mean, I did that for years, and the sky's the limit.
And I think those headdresses still like are lodged in my brain. There was one. Did you guys know with like Sinatra and Dean Martin and those, I still like, that is burned into my brain. I was just like, oh my God, it's so good. Oh, like, like that.
Those were soda bottles. Yeah. I went to Kinko's and printed out pictures and laminated them and put them, and we did this whole showgirl number, and I made these, turkey feather boa plumes behind it. And we did this whole Vegas showgirl number. And I mean, to me, that's burlesque. And listen, I will go and spend some pennies on a fancy costume too, but I have no problem hot gluing,
mix it
anything
up, man.
together.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Mix it up.
So you talked about your love of sci-fi, and before you talked about a nerd show too. So now we have this term nerdlesque. When did that start flying around? Because you are a nerdlesque expert.
Like, it was 10, 12 years ago. I just remember there being this, like, rah, over, like, is nerdlesque burlesque, and what is it, and is it valid, and what are people trying? It was such a weird conversation to even be having, I think.
Yeah.
It's sort of like saying, like, are musicals theater? Like, yep, they're a type of it. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
It was very weird. I think,
Why do you think there was this conversation about it? Why do you think people would even care?
well, what's funny to me is I think that it was that it was a response on many people's part to, well, burlesque is this very specific thing from a very specific time that looked a certain way. And even if, we now account for different bodies on stage performing this, it's still like burlesque is the stuff that was being done in 1940, 1950, 1920, like whatever. Pick your year, pick your thing. One of the first acts I ever saw was Julie Atlas Muse's thing when she had cockroaches all over her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was a classic showgirl, but there were cockroaches all over her. And Pinky Special was doing this weird, Girl Scout thing that was awesome. And Tigger is, and you're like, so to me, I was like, it was never really that thing. And at the same time, like, you were doing this beautiful classic dance-based stuff and the go-go based stuff with the Pontanis and all this, so it's weird to me that it was ever like, is this really a thing? When it always, to me, encompassed so many different things, right? But I guess because it got very, rather than being, a comedy and drag and nebulous sort of random ideas in the mix, it started becoming more specific pop culture references. And I don't know if people felt left out because they didn't get the references, or if there was just that weird purity thing. I mean, I know there's got to be the same thing. I don't know a ton about the ballet world, but like resistance to, within some people and some companies and some parts of it, there's resistance to change, and there's that like purity of the art form and whatever. So, but it was never a pure art form because this was made up by, strippers, like
absolutely.
It was an interesting, weird, like, not even like having to defend it, but just I was like, why are we, what? Like, do what you want.
Do you think part of it is, once it was titled, once it was like, it's nerdlesque, and now there's shows that are specifically nerdlesque that, maybe that's what people then felt threatened by?
Maybe, which is funny because, again, as, anybody who does not classic, burlesque, like, okay, but there's plenty of stuff that you get excluded from,
Right,
so
right.
But I think maybe it was a little bit of that, and I still get that. I mean, even like a year or two ago, I was in a dressing room with somebody, and there was a like, oh, how was that festival that you did? Like, oh, it was really fun, but then like they stopped, and there was this like nerd thing for like 4 acts in the middle, and I don't even like, whatever. And then I was like, okay, but it's like,
what?
2019, so like, maybe get over it now. Like, I don't, like, what are you threatened about? Like, do your thing and let somebody else do theirs.
I think at this point, burlesque is huge and all-encompassing of so many different kind of, it's just this umbrella, and underneath it, there's so many styles. And that's what makes it fun. And
I know we want to have words for things, but I remember it's sort of around the same time, people were like, well, boylesque? I don't know, is that? And I'm like...
Yes.
And now I'm like, all right, now we have everything lesque, and like maybe we don't need a name for everything in particular. You just call it burlesque and then describe the act if you need to, like if called upon to do so. But we like titles, and also honestly, it does help sell things to the public, which for the most part doesn't know what the fuck burlesque is anyway. Like that's the thing I keep thinking. It's like we think that everybody remembers every act that everyone has ever done. Like if I go outside, like they don't know. So if it helps to sell a show to an audience, then use whatever words you got to use. But man, like, I don't know, just do your show.
Yeah, just do your show and entertain the audience. So what makes nerdlesque? What are the elements?
I think, to me, it is literally a burlesque act, and go ahead and define burlesque however the hell you want, that is based on a reference to a specific thing that is not solely a personal reference. So an act based on that time in summer camp in 4th grade, like, that's not Nerdlesque. Your Unsolved Mysteries act, that's Nerdlesque.
Yes, woohoo!
Liberty Rose, who I believe is since retired from performing, did a Ben Franklin act. That's Nerdlesque to me, because it is based on, it's not based on a sci-fi thing or a cartoon, but it is based on a specific thing. Honestly, I think a Josephine Baker act is Nerdlesque in that it is based on a cultural reference. To be honest, I think Legends Tributes acts are technically Nerdlesque because they are based on cultural references that, you know, are very specific to burlesque. I don't know that, again, your average audience member is going to know, like, aha, that was an act originally performed by Satan's Angel in 19 whatever, you know, but technically,
something popularized in the culture.
Right.
That's not, you know, your original concept.
That's it. I mean, I think political acts technically, you know, could be political in the sense of, like, I am representing a political figure. You know, so then I don't know. I mean, that then if you are producing a Nerdlesque show or a Nerdlesque festival or a Nerdlesque thing, then I think it is on the producer or the casting person or board to decide where to narrow that for themselves.
Yeah.
For some people, you know, for some shows, it is this one particular movie or this one particular series or the idea of vampires or the idea of horror or whatever. And, you know, so I don't know, like maybe if somebody submits a act about I don't know. I don't even know where you go with this. You know, like about a demon within a particular religious tradition, like is that Nerdlesque? I don't know. Then you decide for yourself and for your show.
Within the show as you curate.
And again, I don't think it needs to be, it's only useful in that it sells the show to a potential audience at that point, I think.
And do you think, like, one of the appeals of Nerdlesque, because I think it's gotten very popular, and like you said, it's always been around, right? Like, you were always doing it. Femme Appeal has always been doing these amazing shows, you know, Lefty Lucy. It's always existed, right? But once it gets titled and packaged and you have these theme shows, do you think that the audience, you know, they extra connect to it? Because if there's if there's this is probably like, I don't know, this might be like a Nerdlesque, like Mortal Sin, but like if someone's doing like a True Blood show and like, you know, that's going to connect with that audience. And so there's a lot of enthusiasm and community and camaraderie within that.
Public side, it is a really great shorthand, and I mean that in a non-pejorative sense, way to interest people in a show, right? Absolutely. You're going to get people who, you know, obviously people who are resistant to the idea of bodies, you know, nudity on stage and whatever, like aren't going to come to anything. But once we're over that hurdle, you know, like, oh yeah, I need to go out tonight, whatever, like, oh, but there's a True Blood show. I love that. I'm going to go to that, you know? Absolutely. The flip side of that is on the artistic side to me, when it becomes a shorthand for doing the work as an artist. That if you literally are dressing up like a character that everybody loves and getting applause because you come out like that character, and then the act is not compelling and not well crafted and not, there's no presence and there's no whatever, then it doesn't matter what you could be wearing a blue dress or you could be wearing a Superman costume or you whatever.
It can be a crutch if you just pick it, like when somebody comes out to, you know, like this like major epic rock anthem, everybody's gonna freaking go completely insane.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really matter. It's just the song, you know. So you could put a crutch on it.
It's letting the costume do the work for you, whether that costume is, you know, a big flowy whatever, or again a Superman thing because people like Superman, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, from the flip side of that, as a producer and trying to get out to the audience, it is a really great, effective way. I've been doing it for years to get an audience into a theater. I mean, because let's face it, you know, like it's hard to get people to live stuff.
Oh yeah,
like it has been more and more of a struggle with every day that passes, and then the world ended. But I will be interested to see what happens, you know, if we move forward from the end of the world. But
yes,
because we were moving away socially and economically so much from live entertainment that I'm not going to fault anybody for being like, how do I get people in? Like, all right, let's try, what is the number one show right now? Like, great, let's do it. Like,
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, did you feel, and especially because you were producing several shows in the city a week, like you had a lot going on, and to rely on, to be able to be like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do a superhero show and that's going to hit that market. And then we're going to have like the super sexy show.
Mhm.
And then we're going to, have the show at that bar that was really cool and had like the TARDIS. I'm so totally uncool. I don't know anything.
I love this.
So
You got the word right. Yay!
I don't even know what it means.
It was the blue thing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that blue thing. But it kind of gives you something to work with. But then do you feel like a pressure then, like, okay, now everybody loves superheroes. Marvel movies are everything. I have to do like a superhero thing, or I have to do like an anime, or...
So we had a friend who was a producer, a theater producer at Lower East Side Theater, and one of the theaters. It's funny. I had actually worked with him as an actor in like the late '90s, and then did shows at his theater years later. Did titty shows at his theater years later, and still good friends with him. And, we talked about a lot of this stuff with him, with the frustration of getting people into any sort of live entertainment. And he was looking at it from the theater side and we were looking at it from the burlesque side. And he said, I got to say, like, somebody did a week of Big Lebowski stuff in the theater. It was all theater, so it was like comedy and readings and this and that. And we'll show the movie and talk along with it and whatever. And he was like, we have never had so many people in this theater. And he's like, I'm so conflicted because I want to do, art. I am an artist and I am here for the art. But he's like, but you call something a Big Lebowski night and you're going to get 1,000 more people in than you would otherwise. So Amazing. There is that. Yes, I absolutely feel that like, oh, well, but I'm not going to do stuff that I'm not interested in. Like, it's sort of why I never did, other than the car alarm thing. I didn't do a fan dance because I'm not interested in putting the work into becoming good with fans. I'm bad with fans. I'm not competent with it, and I'm not going to, it's not worth it to me to put that much time and effort into it.
They're harder than they look.
Right? I believe me, I can see it. And like everybody who does it well, oh my God. But that's it. I'd rather watch somebody else do it. Like, that's awesome. In the same way that I'm like, I'm not going to put a ton of effort into I've never seen Stranger Things. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in the show. I'm not going to put a ton of time and effort into creating a show around a thing that I don't even want to watch in the first place.
So is there like a fatal error that I could make if I were to go in Nerdlesque? Like, say like, say you go to like a classic burlesque show and somebody comes out and does Michael Bublé's Feeling Good, which I totally did. I did it once. I did it at one of your shows.
Before I breathe my last, I actually want to do an act to that song just because.
I mean, listen,
I'm an asshole,
bumps. But I mean, like, it's just so obvious, and I totally did it.
It's so good. But there's reasons why we do these songs, because you're like,
yes, every bump is there, the rises, but this is a sin to do this. Yeah. It's like, hey, big spender, you can't do it. So, is there something like that in Nerdlesque? Like, if somebody comes out and does Wonder Woman, is everybody backstage who's seasoned like rolling their eyes?
I can only speak for myself, but I have seen a lot of this shit. I've booked a lot of this shit. I've been on adjudication committees for a lot of this shit. I know for me personally, if you do any version of just doing the costume and stripping to the theme song, I am probably not super interested. That's nerd buble right there.
That's what we'll call it. You just nerd buble.
That is nerd buble. You're in a Starfleet uniform and you're doing a version of and I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, I do that. Like, I'm not talking about anything in particular. Like, whatever. Nerds be nerds, whatever. But that to me is a little like, I put on a corset and I put on Michel Bublé and I took off the corset and the song ended. Same thing. This is just a personal thing. I kind of don't need to see another Harley Quinn act unless somebody does something really, really amazing with it.
Okay. I know who that is.
Because Harley Quinn is also a nerd Bublé. Like, it's obvious. Like, I get why you want to, I get it. There was a couple years where that was Catwoman. It's like anything else now. Like there is probably, if there is not a new story to tell in that, then I'm not sure why we're redoing the act again.
You get why people go to it.
Absolutely. The wonderful thing that finally occurred to me about Nerdlesque, I don't go to cons because I don't like crowds, and I went to the 1986 Boston Star Trek convention with my dad, and we were both terrified, and we left. And that was the last con I went to that I wasn't working at. But that's just me. I also like the crowd thing. I can't. But if you just want to make the costume, like, you can do that now.
It seems to me that it's like you said, it's the same thing as a burlesque act. It's like if you aren't really getting finding yourself within it and you're just regurgitating something that you've seen, then it lacks the authenticity, and that's what makes the eyebrows go up.
It's like when it's like, well, you have to have a fan dance, you have to have a number with a stocking peel, you have to have a slow, you have to have a shimmy, you have to do, I'm like, do you though? Like, do ya? It's sort of seeming like you have to have a Doctor Who, you have to have a Star Wars, you have to, like, do ya? Like, what if you know,
You don't.
I love Nerdlesque shows. I love working with the Nerdlesque Festival. I've been super fortunate that they've put up with me for years, and that I've been getting to work with them and perform with them and host with them.
You host the Nerdlesque Festival, don't you?
I've hosted the last night, the second night of it for a couple years now. I was supposed to do this year. It was Nerd Christmas. Christmas was canceled. 2024, man. We'll be back.
Oh, Lord. How long has the festival been going on? How long's the festival been going on, Nasty?
I don't want to say because I will get it wrong. It has been, I want to say around 5 years, but I will probably get it wrong. Get that wrong.
Yeah, I would put it between like 5 to 7, I think.
And finally they found the home at Coney Island, which was the perfect place for that show.
Absolutely
and it's
perfect.
been incredible the last couple of years. And I love watching the show, and I've gotten to work with the adjudication committee too for the last couple of years, which has actually been really wonderful. I love getting to see them, because I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm not going to sit down and watch burlesque videos because, like, it's a lot, you know. But to have to do it, quote unquote, as homework for a festival, you're like, okay, great, cool. Now I'm like, I get to, and I especially love watching the stuff that I don't get the reference from. Like, that to me is wonderful.
Because it's such a big world now, right? It's such a big world.
And if the act speaks to me and I don't know what the hell it's referring to, or I get the story just based on what that person is doing on stage, then that's a successful act.
That's amazing. That's amazing to think. Yeah.
Non-Nerdlesque. If it's compelling to watch, then it's compelling to watch.
Absolutely. That's the key, right? Has the festival grown a lot, like, over the years that you've been hosting it? What's the audience that it attracts? Is it like, does it attract like a mini con audience? Look, I said con instead of Comic-Con. Does that make me cool?
Yes, it does. I don't know. I don't go to cons, so I don't know. You know, it's funny. I actually don't, because of my crowd thing, I don't tend to interact with the audience much when I'm not on stage. But I do know that from the host's perspective, like, they are there for it. Like, they are there to see it. And people have done acts, you know, crazy, like, amazing, you know, energetic crowd. And people have done stuff that, like, is literally, like, emotionally devastating.
Yeah.
And they're there for all of it, which is really wonderful. In a way that is my hope for any festival audience, that they are there for, like, bring it all, like, bring it. Or for any show audience, honestly. But because it is so much show, I mean, you know, like, festivals from all sides. Like, you can get titty fatigue, but, like, for people who are like, just give it to me. Just keep it coming. Like, it's wonderful. It's
no, when your audience invests like that, especially in a festival where you have people who are creating specific acts or people who are traveling, you know, the audience has to watch a lot, but you want them there with you. I mean, that's what makes it all worthwhile for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
What are some of the most, like, amazing? Because I feel like within the Nerdlesque umbrella too, there's so much room for so much creativity, like you were just saying.
Much stuff.
What if you like? What are some of the most amazing things that you've seen? If you can just pop off a couple of your favorites.
So Heart Crimson, who does not, I don't know if they are actually retired from burlesque or if they just don't perform often. They are have been one of the producers. I also don't know if they're still producing with the festival, but they did an act based on The Shining.
Ooh.
The movie The Shining, that also addressed issues of colonialism and appropriation and ownership of bodies. That like, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this was it was gorgeous. It was slow. There was slowness and stillness, and it's also, and I love that movie, and I think it's a movie with like you could just kind of go off on forever. So like,
Absolutely.
the idea this is now part of that canon for me was just delightful. It was a wonderful act. At the last festival, I do not remember. God damn it! They're from Vancouver's Draco Muffboy, and they did a Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy slash act that involved. We literally had to put that right. So I had to stall. I was hosting this. I had to stall for a long time with the curtains closed while Patrick at Coney Island covered the stage with plastic tarps.
Wow.
And then we put it right before intermission because there was a lot of cleanup involved.
Oh man.
It was Harry's birthday, and Harry got what he wished for.
It was worth the cleanup.
It was so worth the cleanup. It was the most filthy, amazing, also like two incredibly gorgeous humans, like gorgeous, and also just like deeply, deeply, beautifully, wonderful humans doing this fucking act. I was like, thank God that this is intermission, because nothing I say after this, like the audience ain't gonna listen to me for 15 minutes. It was one of my favorite things that I've ever seen on the stage.
So you host too. You host the Nerdlesque Festival. It's a lot of pressure. I love your hosting style. Like you always, I'm side stage chortling when you're on stage. I'm like, do you prefer? Do you prefer one to the other?
I love them both. I like when I get to just do an act. So you're like, I get to watch the show, do my act, and then watch the rest of the show. Like, what a fucking treat. But I really like hosting. I actually really, really love hosting. My favorite thing in the world is opening the show with an act and then being, naked with a microphone for the rest of the show. Which
is typically how you host. So you do both in the same time. You don't just come out, I'm just hosting tonight. You do a strip act.
It's so many hosts are so like, think of the hosts that I admire, that I like am awed by, and they're people who have other skills. Like, they're people who are either magicians or comedians or singers or, actors. I mean, I think like Bradford Scobie, Bradford isn't doing special skills, but he's an amazing comedian, amazing actor. So
he's so funny.
Whatever character he's doing is a show in and of itself. And to me, I'm like, I get drunk. Like, that's my special skill. I get drunk.
I have that skill too.
Right? You're a host. That's it. You're a host. And it's funny because I did a show in Boston, and my mom brought all of her friends, all of her lady friends, and they sat at a big table, and afterwards she comes up and she's like, you did great, it was great. And they were all like, she's so funny, she's like Dean Martin. And my mother's like, and I told them that, like Dean Martin, it was just iced tea in the glass, because you only do iced tea, right? You don't drink on stage. And I was like, yeah, sure. I never drink on stage, Ma.
No, you're like, I'm better when I'm drunk.
I need something to hold.
Listen, takes the edge off, man. You gotta take the edge off when you get out there and give it all up to an audience that you don't know how they're going to respond to you. It's a high pressure situation. Little wine helps. So in 2007, speaking of family at shows, in 2007, Miss Exotic World, your grandmother was in the audience?
Yes.
That's crazy.
My grandmother, we lived in Massachusetts when I was growing up, and then after 50 years, she left my grandfather because he was a macho son of a bitch, and she moved in with my uncle in LA, and my uncle and his husband lived with my grandmother for years. And when I was in college, they would take her out to Vegas with them, and I would get, when I was in theater school, I would get postcards from my grandmother from Vegas with the showgirls on them. Yes. And on the back, she'd be like, you should come out here and make costumes for the shows someday. You'd love it. You could. And they were living in LA when that was the first year I was at Exotic World, and my uncle was like, we'll come out. It's fun. We'll come out and we'll come see the show.
Oh, that's
And I was like,
amazing.
okay, I mean, it's going to be a long night, whatever. And we got there, and that was that year that it was at that weird nightclub.
Oh, the Celebrity Theater.
No, the Crave.
The
nightclub.
Crave. Oh, yeah. Yes,
and it was so packed, and they removed all the chairs, and my grandmother was probably
that was the year
80 or
Modesty won. Yes, I remember.
Yes, yeah, with the pony. And I remember, and Tigger, because he's Tigger, I'm gonna cry about this, was like, I want to meet your grandmother. And I was like, okay, come meet my grandmother. And he was like, and he went out and met her, and he was like, why are you standing up? And she's like, well, they took the chairs and whatever. And he was like, give me a minute. And he like went back and had to like bribe a busboy because they were like, no, we can't bring out chairs. They won't let us bring out chairs. And he was like, give me a fucking chair, and like brought a chair to my grandmother. And my favorite thing was actually that in that act I did that year, which was the flower puppet one, I was wearing gloves that were my great grandmother's, that were her mother's. That, you know, so I was like, oh, my grandmother's here, and these were her mother's gloves that I have on stage. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And did they enjoyed it?
Yeah, no, they loved it. My uncle was like, I think the burlesque competition was very small at the time. There was only a couple people, and he was like, there could have been more dudes. And my grandmother's like, that was beautiful. I'm tired. We're going back to bed. I was like, okay, great, thanks.
Well, that would have been a very long. I mean, that's a long night for any human, but especially for grandma.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
They stayed literally like through our set, and then they left. But it was lovely. So yeah, I think that's the only time she ever saw me do burlesque.
In quarantine, so since the world ended, you were one of the first people to get into the virtual action with the Quarantine Burlesque Festival. What inspired you to do that, and how did you get it together?
Well, so I had been doing Fire and Fury, which is Rex Halligan and Nip Fury. We had a show scheduled. I was in Alaska at the Freezing Tassel Festival.
Yes, with Foxy Tan, and everybody had to get ushered out of there.
We all literally had to get home, and we were like, are the airports all going to close? Are we going to be stuck in Alaska? Like, it was, so I was literally like the furthest I have ever been from home when the world was going to close. And hilariously, I have now not been more than a mile away from this very room since then. So hilarious. But came home from that and was supposed to go down into New York to do a Fire and Fury show, 4 days later. Like, cool, I'll see you guys when I get back. Great. And they were, at least sort of in my sphere, the first people. They were like, so we had to shut down the show, but we're gonna do, if you guys want to film stuff, we thought we'd do it, over the internet, and see, and everybody was, I think pretty much everybody who was supposed to be in the show was like, cool, let's try it. Yeah. So I did a bunch of those, and they were really fun, and they did a great job with them. And because of that, I was watching people's, some people filmed put the camera on a thing and filmed an act. And some people were doing it more edited, like a music video and stuff. And that, I was finally like, oh, there's some shit I can do on film that I couldn't do on stage. Cool. So I was getting into that and stuff. And then I don't know, I just was like, what are we in a festival? Because I have talked more, because of internets and all this, I have talked more to friends at a huge geographical distance in the last 6 months than I have in years before that. And was realizing like, oh, right, what an opportunity to bring people together. The hardest thing about festivals to me is like, unless I'm, getting sponsored or paid to be there, I can't travel a lot because I don't have that, it's expensive. And the idea that like, oh, we can now do a festival where, we can have a cast party on Zoom and stuff. And that would be, it's not the same thing, but it's something. But we can remove that economic and time issue.
Yes.
And also sort of like have all the special guests we want, because we're not
from anywhere. Anybody from anywhere.
So I was like, let's just try it. And I think there were folks in Seattle who were putting one together at the same time that I wasn't aware of. And somebody's like, they're doing this too. I was like, cool. And they had a slightly different take on it, which is awesome. And I think theirs had a longer time frame. So I think it was put together a little bit. It like went live a little bit after, but it was happening simultaneously. And it was really fun, And so Amuse Bouche and I have wanted to. I don't know how much I'm ever going to produce shows again. It's been a joke with the couple of people who have been in every one of my last show ever shows that I produced, but I don't know that I'm ever going to really do that again. But Amuse was like, if you ever do, like, because she's from a theater production background, she's like, I'd love to do one with you. So I was like, hey man, do you want to, this could be kind of weird, but let's try it. And she's like, awesome. She got the Rona. So she was co-producing from the sickbed.
Oh my God.
Which meant that Doc actually, she didn't appear on film because she was like, like, I don't feel up to that. So Doc actually animated her. So she stage kittened as an animation for some of it, which was
That's
really
amazing. Cute. I love that.
And and it was really neat. I mean, people did some amazing stuff, and it was just fun. And honestly, like, we had a Zoom cast party that was like, we had to timing the Zoom cast party because we had somebody in South Africa, somebody in Hawaii, a bunch of people in Vancouver and LA, some people in the middle of the country, and a whole bunch of New York and Toronto. And I was like, how about, I don't know, I think we ended up with like 5 p.m. So it was like some folks, it was like 11 a.m. in Hawaii and like 2 a.m. And, we had somebody from somewhere that I was like, I don't actually know where you are. It was,
no. Like you never heard of it before?
Yeah, it was like a British, like an island that's part of Britain, but in the Caribbean. I was just like, I don't know what time it is where you are. Oh my God. It was really fun.
These are the new challenges of virtual shows, the things you have to figure out.
And now I'm like, there's all these people that I'm like, I really hope I ever get to meet in person someday too.
Something to look forward to. And do you think like this, as virtual shows are growing and changing and people are coming up with different things, this like forced still life where we're all just stuck in our houses and can't go anywhere and our only medium is virtual. Do you think it's going to kind of evolve burlesque a little bit in some direction when we get back on stage?
I would really hope so. I think it's gonna have to, because I honestly, I don't think we're gonna just get back to exactly the way it was. It's not, the landscape has changed. And it's not just about, who's sick and who's, gets, and the economics of our personal lives have changed. For those of us for whom performing and burlesque related income was our only, only source of income, that's very different. And then a lot of people with other kinds of jobs are also losing those jobs or those hours or whatever.
Absolutely.
So the economics of it are going to change. And I know it's not, the landscape in New York specifically is changing as far as nightlife and venues and businesses. And I think that's literally worldwide.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to have to account for that somehow. I don't know what that's going to look like. I know that there are going to be fewer stage opportunities, and I hope that people are respectful about that in a way that, we all we're into the hustle and, the hustle is real and the hustle is thing. And I'm like, the hustle was actually kind of shitty anyway. And is not, I would love individuals and performers to reevaluate their relationship towards the hustle.
I think people are.
I hope so. I think so too. I think in some cases, or just, there are some people that I know personally who are, and I hope that that's, on a larger scale. I think that's fucking capitalism fucking us. So, and also finding ways largely for the patriarchy, finding ways for keep women fighting each other so that we're not paying attention to all the other stuff. But I think, regardless, we are going to have to reevaluate how we do all this.
What are some of the changes that you hope that maybe we will see coming out of this, like as a community at large?
I'd like to see a little more focus on the work for the sake of the work. That's all. I think that and it's not even, it's very easy to be like, people only just want to win crowns now. Like I don't think that's it. I think that's sort of symptomatic, but I think I would like to see people just like do their work and respect other people's work. That's all.
That's fair enough.
I would love that to happen. Like, we're both in this show. Let's both do our acts in this show. And if and if we want to go hang out after, that's cool. And if we don't, like, cool. I'll see. Oh my God, we're in that show together on Tuesday. I'll see you then.
No reason to not treat everyone with kindness.
That's it. I don't, because the margins are so small.
Yes. No, they are.
all sort of worked with this lack mentality for so long that like if somebody else gets a show or a gig or mentioned in a thing or whatever, then that's a show or a gig or a mention that I don't get. And that's a false lack mentality. But now there are going to be fewer gigs.
Oh gosh.
And there are going to be fewer spots in those gigs as they exist. And we still have to be humans around that.
Well, and I think there's probably actually going to be less performers too, because I think people are not going to have to be able to afford the luxury to perform and have to commit to something that
that's it.
Actually,
and I think
that's
it. I think at the very heart of it for me, I would like it to not become a rich lady hobby.
Yes, well, that fair enough.
Lady of whatever gender.
Yes, I can appreciate that. Well, Nasty, I want to thank you for being on the show. And I also want to say you're making these totally amazing masks right now. They're the best I've seen. Nasty Canasta. Zips, corset ties, jeweled up for a fancy night on the town. Was that one pattern a napkin from the strip house? Like
yes,
you have,
it was.
Yes, I have one of those too.
My mom stole a napkin once, and I loved it so much that she tracked those down, and I kept them for so long and was going to make a corset, and I was like, screw it, I'm making masks out of them. And then the person who designed the pattern, the fabric pattern, saw it online and was like, I designed that pattern. This is awesome. I was like, that is so cool.
That's amazing. I have one of those napkins too, and I saw it. I was like, that's from the strip house. So where can everybody get them?
Either on Instagram, I'm Nasty Canasta NYC, or my website, nastycanasta.com.
All right, perfect. Everybody go get one of those masks, because we're going to be wearing them for a long time, and they're very beautiful.
Yeah, we are. So make it cute and make all the horrible bros jealous and make them want to put masks on too.
That's right. Nasty, thank you so much for being on the Bump and Grind. I'm going to see you on the other side in a dressing room. We will.
God, I hope so.
We'll be backstage eating pizza and drinking red wine like the olden days at City Winery. Until then. Thank you, Nasty.
Thank you, Mama.
And that was another episode of The Bump and Grind. Thanks to Nasty Canasta for joining me. Follow her and get your own masky canasta to keep you safe and look fabulous. You can get that on Instagram at Nasty Canasta NYC. You know where to find me at Angie Pontani. Let us know how you liked today's episode. Tag, review, 5 stars, new cars. Well, I don't need a new car, but just like, review, follow, and say hello on social media. Thank you for tuning in, and I cannot wait to open the curtain on another episode of The Bump and Grind next week.
This has been a Giant Panda King production. You can find us at giantpandaking.com and on Instagram at giantpandaking.